a warning to everyone going through this process. Today I'm going to tell you the story of how I got the best news. This is how I was able to move to Stockholm and live with my partner. So it's actually been over a year since this process started now. I'm here now, I have my sample visa and I'm living permanently in Stockholm, but getting a residency permit is a whole long process. Here's how I did it. It was quite a long time ago that we decided that I would move to Sweden rather than the other way around, but we couldn't apply for my sample visa as soon as we wanted to because we had to wait until my partner fulfilled all of the maintenance requirements. Their salary was fine at the time, but they needed to have their own apartment where they could show that they were on the contract for it. Then that would mean they could provide evidence of their monthly bills and info on the size of it. And then, so you need the bills because you have to show that your salary is enough to cover the rent and then have a certain amount of money left over per month. And that requirement will change whether it's a single person, a couple with however many children. So depending on the size of your family, you need a different amount of spare money that you can show Migrationsverket after paying your rent. When we first wanted to apply, my partner was living in effectively a house share. They were living on the island of Lidingö, which is lovely, but they weren't renting first hand. They were kind of renting a room from a friend, and until they sorted that out, we couldn't apply for a sample visa. Even when that was sorted out, we weren't honestly sure whether or not we could go with this route. I was looking for jobs. I was really hoping to get a work visa, and I thought that would work out quite well, but as it turned out, it's a really good thing that we put in our sample visa application when we did. It cost us some money, in the kind of region of £200 I think, but it cost much less than it would have going in the other direction, much less than trying to get my partner into the UK. It did definitely seem worth it just to have that in motion, even when we weren't sure that we'd need it. So when we started that process, the forms were quite reasonable and we just had to fill in loads of details about ourselves. For example, when did we meet, how did our relationship start, what do we do together? It was quite nice to fill out really, because we just got to tell the story of our relationship. Anyway, I did all the forms first, then after I submitted it, it went over to my sample's email address and they could do their bits. We did it on a weekend, so we didn't hear back from Migrationsverket right away. But then you get a case number first, I think it is. Well, I'm doubting myself because there's two of them. There's the case number and there's the control number, and you get one of them right away, and that lets you log into the Migrationsverket page to check the status of your application. And then the other one comes through a bit later, and that's your proper number for that whole process. So we could see our application in the system, and then nothing happened for ages. That's a lot of what the process is, honestly, just sitting and waiting. So we waited. We were expecting it to take months. You can check the time to a decision on the Migrationsverket page, and it tells you, on average, for somebody from your country applying for your type of visa, on average, how long does somebody wait? And when we applied, it was 18 months. Then it went up to 19 months, then back down to 18. At one point, I think it went down to 17, and then I got a little bit more optimistic, but it was a really long rate. So I was thinking, well, we applied in January 2023, so I was thinking maybe it'll be summer 2024 that it all goes through. As you can tell from this video, it was not summer 2024 when I moved. I have been so lucky. After however many months, I got an email asking me to contact the Swedish embassy in London to book an interview. They didn't give me very clear instructions, I'll be honest. I had to go and look it all up on with the embassy's contact details, work out how to get hold of them to book it, but it was all available online. I would have just loved somebody to tell me step by step exactly what to do. At that point, I was really excited. It was summer thereabouts, and I was like, oh my goodness, they've already asked me to book an interview. Maybe this is going to go faster than I thought. There is still a bit of a roller coaster to come though. That email did not get me to where I am now. It did not get me to being here having my visa. That email got me in contact with the embassy, who told me that the next available appointments were in March 2024. And then I had this big light bulb moment of understanding why the waits were so long. The embassy had a really big backlog of people all just stuck waiting for this interview. So I took the soonest interview I could. I think it must have been the 13th of March because it was the day after our 3rd anniversary, so I always remember that date because it felt kind of like maybe it's just meant to be. Maybe I'll get my interview right after this big milestone for us, and that will be our story, that'll be how it worked out. And I was thinking, okay, so I'll have my interview mid-March, then maybe it'll take me a while to hear back, and there'll be the wait to get my card, and so maybe, I was thinking at that point, maybe I'll be able to move around Easter 24. So a bit better than I was expecting, still a really long wait. At that point I was still thinking it would be well over a year's wait. And then in September 2023 it all changed again. I saw something that made me really quite optimistic. There's the most wonderful Facebook group, Väntan på familjen, and it's full of people who are waiting for family It's full of people who are waiting for family reunification visas, I can say that word. So that's mostly reuniting with romantic partners, husbands, wives, sandals, but it can be with other relatives, it can be children with parents, etc. But because everybody's going through that same process, the admins know loads about it because they see it all the time, and wherever you're from in the world, chances are there'll be somebody from not that far away from you. There were plenty of other British people around for me. Don't know about other Welsh people, but yeah, definitely British in general. And there were people from all over the world talking about their experiences, talking about their local embassies, what the waits were like, what the process was like, and it was just so useful. But anyway, in this group, out of nowhere, somebody posts to say that they'd emailed the London embassy to ask about cancellations. That's the thing you could do. You can email them and just say, just on the off chance, have there been any cancelled appointments, any chance I could get in sooner? And usually the answer's no, it's not very likely because everybody wants these appointments. But this person was told that yes, they could get their interview much sooner. And they were shocked. They knew about the backlog. They asked, how come? And apparently the embassy had been given some extra funding or extra staffing or something like that to try to clear their backlog. I hadn't really been emailing to ask about cancellations at that point because, well, it's hard to get time off work at short notice, and I just didn't really think there was much point. It seemed like such a low chance. But this gave me a reason to. I sent a quick email on a Sunday night to ask if there were any cancellation slots available, and then Monday passed and I didn't hear back. And Tuesday passed and I didn't hear back, and I was thinking, okay, no, never mind, maybe it won't work out for me, maybe that other person was just really lucky and I should try again next week. But then on the Wednesday afternoon, late-ish, maybe around 4 o'clock, I was at work. I just quickly checked my phone and saw an email, saw it was from the London embassy, and they'd replied saying, yeah, there are some dates in early October, what would you like? I was so excited I couldn't believe it. An interview in October 2023 meant that there was a good chance I'd get the decision early enough to move at Christmas. Months and months earlier than the summer, than the Easter that I've been thinking. It was the best moment, and honestly I cried at work. I had to go and hide in a classroom out of the way. I messaged my Sambo immediately. They were working, they didn't see it right away. I messaged my family immediately. They were working, didn't get a response. And then when I calmed down a bit, I went to find my wonderful boss from back in that job. As soon as she saw me, she could tell that something was up. I don't know, I think I stressed her out a bit, but I took her off to another quiet classroom and I explained, and she was absolutely delighted for me. She gave me a hug because she knew how long I'd been waiting. For all that we applied in January 2023, it was a good 6 months before that I started looking at jobs and trying to find a way. So it had been a long time coming, and it was such a good thing. Anyway, then I went through the scheduling and through booking time off work. It ended up being an appointment at the very end of September, so even better than the first offer. And I was really grateful to be allowed time off to go because that is not at all easy in schools. And so that interview was the last major hurdle. If I could pull that off, convince them that our relationship was genuine, I was going to be able to get my residence permit. I was going to get to live with my partner, so just a little bit of pressure. And then a warning to everyone going through this process. After a month has passed from submitting your application, you can no longer re-download your forms from the Migrationsverket website. They only host the paperwork publicly for the first month, and after that it's no longer accessible from your account. So past me did not know this, and I went to my account I wanted to re-download my paperwork to refresh my memory, just check what I put on there, what do they ask me, just to kind of help myself work out what to expect, but I couldn't. From my message history with my partner, I found some of it, so it was not like I had nothing, but if you're a worrier like me, I'd say save your own copy somewhere safe, somewhere easy to find, because I don't want other people going through that stress when you're already going to be stressed because you've got an interview at an embassy. As it all happened, it was completely fine. I went to the London embassy. You have to wait outside there because there's not enough indoors waiting space, and I got lucky, it was a sunny day. And when I was let in, it was all nice and smooth, and we went through the questions. The member of staff that I was sat in that interview space with was really lovely and tried to put me at ease. The questions were really standard ones. You can find example questions from that Finalizing Facebook group if you go and look through their info. Basically, the interviewer goes through what Migrationsverket has asked for, which for me wasn't too much. They wanted to verify my passport and things like that, and then lots of questions about my life, and the interviewer tried to make it feel like we were just having a chat instead of like, here's a super important document that we have to fill in and you have to answer everything perfectly. No, he was all right about it. We did have to go quite slowly because the staff have to type everything you say, so sometimes they'd start a sentence off and then I'd fill in what I'd say next, and then I'd have to help with spelling names and things like that. Questions included: when did you meet, when did your relationship start, how do you keep in touch, how often do you see each other, what do you do together. They also wanted me to explain what in Sweden is called your civil status, and that's not really a concept in the UK, but it's basic stuff. It means where you were born, where you went to school, who your family are, where you all live now, who you live with, and employment history. I'm lucky again because I'm relatively young and because I've had quite a straightforward career, straightforward life. I didn't have too much to explain. To do that for me and my partner took about an hour. Now, if you've got a more complicated life, say marriages and divorces, more different jobs, moving around more, then it might take you a good while longer, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just that there's more about you to write up. So I had to answer all these questions for myself, and like I said, also for my partner. Some of that was quite easy, like I know their family background, but weirdly enough, I couldn't remember my partner's father's name. We've never met, it just doesn't stick in my memory. And I sort of tried to practice before the interview, but I guess with the nerves and everything, it just went. And I just had to answer honestly and explain the situation. The interviewer put what I said in the form and it was the best I could do, but my goodness, it worried me. Like, will they question the validity of our relationship because I didn't know such a basic fact about my partner? I felt like, other than that, I'd answered well. It was just that one question that was worrying me as I left. So I went away thinking, well, hopefully this will be fine. And then it's just time to wait again. Well, I say that. This time I had a way to hurry things along. There's a form called the request to conclude. You can use it if you've been waiting for more than 6 months, and it is what it says. It's a request to conclude your case and give you a decision. It's really good to be strategic about when you use it though. So if you submit it and you haven't had an interview yet, they probably can't make a decision in your case. They just don't have enough information without doing an in-person interview with you. So if I'd submitted my form in July or August when I'd been waiting 6 months, then probably all that would have happened is that they'd have told me to book the interview. And then I would have used my one chance to request to conclude, and I couldn't do it again. You might decide that's worth it if you just really want to get things moving, but for me and a lot of people, it's not so sensible. And I'll tell you why. After your interview, often you'll hear back quite quickly, but once in a while, somebody will be missed after they've done their interview. My interview was telling me about somebody who'd been waiting, 2 or 3 months after their interview and hadn't had a decision. I've seen people on Facebook who've been waiting 3-4 months after their interview and haven't had a decision. If you've already done it, that's it. You're going to be powerless and you're just sat there hoping that somebody decides to look at your file that day. Whereas for me, I did my interview and then I think I gave them a day just in case. And so then the day after that I submitted my request to conclude, and it was 2 days post-interview that I got my decision. And as you can tell from where I am now, it was a positive decision. It was fine that I forgot my partner's father's name. They believed our relationship was genuine and I got the right to live and work in Sweden. Then there was lots of celebrating, lots of telling people, and the next step before you can actually go, well, it depends on your situation. For me, coming from a country with, well, at that time, visa-free travel to the Schengen zone, I could have gone straight to Sweden and had my permit card delivered there, but obviously I wasn't ready. I had to give notice on my job, notice on my flat, and I couldn't move right away. But if you do have visa-free travel, it might be something to be aware of. For me, I waited for my permit card to be delivered to the London Embassy, which took about 2 weeks. Then I had to go and queue up to collect it, which was a bit awkward really. The opening hours are 9 to 12 on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays and Fridays. So I had to wait until I was on holiday from work so that I could go. And I had a hell of a day getting there with train cancellation and general chaos. So for all that I planned to be there at 10:30 and have plenty of time and be home in time for lunch, I didn't make it until 20 to 12, right before it closed. And as that was happening, as I was on the train, I wasn't too stressed. I was like, I'm gonna make it, it'll be fine. But then I got there and there were people outside. It was queuing at the door, queuing down the street, then a little bit around the corner. So I joined it and I was just standing there praying that it moved fast and I'd make it in time. Then for whatever reason, a member of staff came down the queue asking people what they were there for. My theory is they were looking people with like quick little jobs so that they could just get them done and clear the queue and keep it all moving. So we asked a few people in front of me what they were there for, and those of us who said things like collecting a permit card were taken. And we were taken inside into the next waiting area and got a little slip with our position number, and inside it was also really, really busy. And I was watching the time tick. The person before me went up at about 11:55 and I was there thinking, are they gonna close? Am I gonna be sent away? Thankfully 12 o'clock came and they just carried on inside. They didn't take any notice about closing time. So I don't know, maybe they shut the doors and stopped letting people in, but those of us who were inside, we just stayed there waiting, and my goodness me, it was a relief. And then after a while, they did call me in and it took like a minute to do what I needed to do. I showed them my passport, she went and got me the envelope and sent me on my way. I won't show you the card because it's got my personal details on it, but it's a driving licence style little card and it's mine. It's my proof that I can live and work in Sweden, and for 2 years from when I got it, I have that right. So until September 2025 I can be here, and then I can renew assuming I want to, and it's such a good feeling. Then I could work towards permanent residence, towards citizenship. After all that time waiting, finally I've got that stability. If any of you are going through a similar thing, trying to get a visa, trying to reunite with somebody that you love, then good luck to you. I'll be here, I'll be talking more about what it's like for me. And if anybody needs more specific support, then I'd really, really recommend that Facebook group. They're really knowledgeable. This whole thing is stressful and you need every bit of support you can get.